So we have the 2014 paper, and this is the first question I want to have a look at. It is question 13, and it's about quadratics. And we're given an equation. I'll give you a second to look at the question. Pause the question if you want to have a go at it. Now, you've got the function of h in terms of t. It's a quadratic, and we know that because it's a minus t squared. We've got a t squared term, so that's the quadratic. So we have the function, and this dictates the height if we know the time. And we're given a graph below it. Before we go into the question and actually answer the question, I will have a look at the graph. Now, you notice it's got a maximum turning point, i.e., if you have a look at the shape of it, it's a sad face. That is if the coefficient of the t squared term is negative. And what do I mean by the coefficient? That's the number in front of the t squared. So if we write this as ht equals minus t squared plus 16t, then you see that the coefficient is minus 1, because minus t squared equals minus 1, and that's negative, so it's a sad face and a maximum turning point. Now, suppose the equation was t squared plus 16t, not minus t squared. So, sorry, t squared plus 16t. That would be a happy face, and it would have a minimum turning point. The best way to think about it is positive coefficient is smiley face. So positive is smiley, negative is sad. But the question is, after how many seconds will the rocket first be at a height of 60 metres? Now, you have the equation, and we know that the height is 60, so that is h is 60. So we know that h equals 60 at a particular time, and we have to find the time at which the height is 60. Check our units, yeah, meters. So we have to solve the equation of 16t minus t squared equals 60. So this is the equation that we want to solve. And what we then want to do is we want to make the term on the right hand side 0. That's what you need to do to solve a quadratic equation, because we need to solve this quadratic equation and find the values of t. So we will take 60 from both sides. And we get this. Now, it's a bit hard to solve a quadratic equation if you've got the negative coefficient of t squared. So what I want to do is I'm going to make that a positive. So we're going to change minus 1 into 1. So if we multiply the left hand side by minus 1, we then can multiply the right hand side by minus 1, which is 0 still, and we can then rewrite the equation. So minus t squared becomes t squared. Positive 16t becomes negative 16t. And negative 60 becomes positive 60. And that is 0. If you found it hard to follow at first, then just send a message or type in the comments and I will respond. But simply what's happening is you multiply both sides by -1 and you get rid of the negative coefficient, that number in front of the t squared term. So we then solve this. You have two options. You can either use the quadratic formula or you can factorise. Now, if it was in the calculator exam and it said solve this to 2 decimal places or 1 decimal place, that would signify that you can't factorise it and you have to use the quadratic formula that you're given in the sheet at the front of the exam paper. But we can do both methods, but I think the best way to do this is to factorise. I mean, you can use both, but I would factorise this. So because the coefficient in front of the t squared is 1, we can use this method. It's a bit more complicated if the coefficient is greater than 1, but I will do that in another video. So t squared minus 16t is 60. We need two numbers that add to make minus 16 and multiply to make 60. Now, if we have two numbers that are positive and we add them, we get a positive. So that can't happen. If we have a positive and multiply it by a negative, you get a negative. So you can't get the 60. But if we have two negatives, we have them to multiply to make the positive and they add to make a negative. So we have to think, well, if we had -5 and -12, they would add to be -17 and multiply to make 60. We can't do that. -3 and -20, yeah, they multiply to make 60, but they add to make -23. But you just have to keep looking through all of the numbers, and I think the option would be -6 and -10, because they add to make -16 and multiply to make 60. So we will then do t minus 6 and t minus 10. Yes, we've got the -6 here, and we've got the -10 here. And we're going to check this. That's t times t is t squared minus 10t minus 6t plus 60. So if you add all of them, you get t squared minus 16t plus 60. Again, I will be making videos on YouTube and on TikTok explaining this in more detail. So we then have to solve the factorised equation. So you've got t minus 6 is 0 or t minus 10 is 0. So our two options are t is 6 and t is 10. Those are the two solutions. But the question, if we have a look at the question, it asks us after how many seconds will the rocket first be at a height of 60 metres. Now, if we have a look at the context, then 6 seconds after it's launched, it will be at a height of 60 metres. And after 10 seconds, it will also be at a height of 60 metres. But the question asks, what's the first time? So we do have to actually answer the question. So at the end of it, you do have to give the final answer. So the first time is 6 seconds. So that will be 6 seconds after the rocket is launched. And that is the final answer. Now, I am going to go through the marking for this. So that's the marking. And this question was out of 4 marks. So your first mark would be for this. Your second mark would then be for this. The third mark would then be for factorising. So the first mark is for substituting in h is 60. The second is for moving everything to one side and getting that positive coefficient. The third term is factorising, and the fourth term, the fourth mark, is the final answer. And if we have a look at the notes at the bottom, I advise you to have a look at these when studying, because they explain the reasons why many pupils lost marks. So if you don't show the working, you get nothing, because the marker is looking to see, do you know how to solve a quadratic? Do you know the method? But if you just give an answer, you're not really showing that, and it is possible to do the wrong method and get the right answer, which gets you nothing in the exam. So here we have the answers that many pupils gave in the exam. So you would lose a mark if you didn't have the 0 in the equation. If you have a look at note 1, that would be 1 mark lost. So you have to make sure that you include this 0. And that's the question one more time. That's question A we've had a look at, and I will do question B in the next video. I will do question B. It's 3 marks, and if you want to have a look at it, then you're free to do so. Thanks for watching.